The grand ballroom glowed with chandeliers dripping light like liquid gold. Every table was set with perfection: crystal glasses, silverware polished until it gleamed, and floral arrangements so extravagant they could have paid someone's rent for a year. Guests whispered as they adjusted their ties and smoothed their dresses, but no one dared speak too loudly. This wasn't just any wedding. It was the union of two powerful families, and everyone in attendance knew that their presence was a mark of status, privilege, and prestige. The groom, Nathaniel Cross, stood tall at the altar, his jaw set in practiced confidence. He came from money, born into the kind of wealth most people only saw in movies. Yet today, even with the weight of his family's expectations on his shoulders, there was a flicker of something unusual in his eyes: nerves. The guests noticed. Nathaniel wasn't known to fidget, but his hand kept adjusting his cufflink. He checked the aisle every few seconds, his polished shoes tapping against the marble floor, as if time had slowed down just to test his patience. Meanwhile, behind the heavy oak doors that separated the ballroom from the bridal suite, the bride, Isabella, stood alone. Her reflection glared back at her from the ornate gilded mirror. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, every contour of her face sculpted to meet the impossible standards of high society. On the table beside her lay the dress her family had chosen, an ivory gown encrusted with pearls, custom-made by a Parisian designer, worth more than most people's homes. But Isabella didn't reach for it. Her hands, trembling but firming with resolve, touched the deep crimson silk draped over the chair. The red dress shimmered like firelight, bold and defiant. She could hear her mother's voice echoing in her mind. "This wedding is not about love, Isabella. It's about alliances, about the cross-fortune, about what this means for us. You'll wear what you're told, you'll smile when you must, and you'll play your role." But Isabella had decided otherwise. The red dress slid over her like a second skin, hugging every curve with unapologetic confidence. It wasn't just a dress, it was a statement, a rebellion. A declaration that she would not bend, not be molded into something she wasn't. When the doors opened and she stepped into the aisle, the entire room froze. Gasps echoed across the marble hall. Someone whispered, "She's in red, at her own wedding?" Another voice sharper hissed, "How disgraceful." The older guests craned their necks, their faces etched with disapproval. Mothers shielded their daughters' eyes, as though the sight of a red dress was sinful. The elite whispered into champagne glasses, shaking their heads. But Isabella walked on, her heels clicking against the floor with measured grace. She didn't falter, didn't blink, didn't lower her head. Her eyes locked on Nathaniel's, and though he looked startled, even shaken, there was something else in his expression, something he tried to hide behind his perfectly rehearsed composure. She walked past the rows of people who were supposed to celebrate her happiness, but instead judged her every move. Women clutched their pearls. Men whispered behind their hands. Cameras from the press clicked furiously, catching every angle of the scandal unfolding live before them. Still, Isabella walked. The priest shifted uncomfortably as she approached. He cleared his throat, unsure of how to proceed. "Dearly beloved," he began hesitantly, his eyes darting to her gown as though it might burn through his words. Nathaniel reached out his hand when she finally stood before him. For a moment, his confident mask cracked. He leaned closer and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear, "What are you doing, Isabella?" She tilted her chin, her voice steady. "Being myself." The guests erupted in louder murmurs, unable to contain themselves. One older man sneered, "This is a disgrace to both families." Another woman muttered, "She's humiliating him, right here, in front of everyone." Nathaniel's father's face darkened like a storm cloud. He whispered something to his wife, who pursed her lips in disdain. They had invested millions into this day, into appearances, into perfection. To them, Isabella wasn't a bride. She was a symbol, a tool. And now, she was ruining everything. But to Nathaniel, there was a strange pull. Her defiance, her strength, it unsettled him, yet intrigued him. The ceremony continued, each word of the vows punctuated by the tension in the air. Guests exchanged looks of horror and fascination, as though they were witnessing both a scandal and a car crash they couldn't look away from. Isabella's red gown gleamed brighter under the chandeliers, a flame in a room that wished for silence. Then, just as the priest asked if anyone objected to the union, a voice cut through the air. "I object." Gasps filled the room. Heads whipped toward the back of the hall. A figure stood there, shadowed at first, then stepping into the light. The crowd whispered furiously, trying to place the man. Tall, broad-shouldered, his presence commanded attention. His eyes locked on Isabella, not with judgment, but with something deeper, recognition. Nathaniel stiffened, his hand tightening around Isabella's. "Who is he?" he demanded in a low voice. Isabella's breath caught in her throat. The man walked forward, each step echoing louder than the last. The guests leaned forward in their seats, desperate to see the unfolding drama. And then, as the man reached the middle of the aisle, he said the words that would change everything. "She can't marry you, because she already belongs to me." The ballroom erupted into chaos. If you're hooked by this shocking twist, don't go anywhere. The story is only getting started. Make sure to like this video and subscribe, because next will leave you speechless. Isabella couldn't sleep that night. The ballroom chandelier's glow still haunted her eyes, and the stranger's piercing gaze seemed etched into her soul. She tossed in her silk sheets, staring at the ceiling, until finally she gave up. Wrapping herself in a robe, she padded barefoot to the balcony of her penthouse. The city lights sprawled endlessly before her, but they couldn't distract her from the storm inside. Who was he? Why had her heart reacted that way to a man she didn't even know? And most importantly, why had he looked at her like he already did? A sudden noise broke her thoughts. A faint scuff, like a shoe against stone. She turned sharply. There, across the street, atop the neighboring rooftop, a shadow stood, motionless, watching. Her breath hitched. The distance was too far to see clearly, but she knew. It was him, the stranger. Her heart pounded. Logic screamed to step back, close the curtains, lock the doors. But something deeper, something primal, rooted her in place. They stood there, separated by a canyon of city air, locked in silent recognition. And then, as if the tension was too much, he turned and vanished into the night. The next morning, Isabella tried to lose herself in routine. A meeting with the board. A photo shoot for a charity gala. Lunch with her best friend, Clarissa. But everything felt off. Clarissa noticed. "You look like a ghost saw you last night," she teased, sipping her martini at their favorite rooftop cafe. "Something like that," Isabella murmured, distracted. Clarissa leaned closer. "Is it about a man?" Isabella froze. Clarissa smirked. "Knew it. Who is he?" Isabella hesitated. She didn't want to tell anyone. But the weight of it pressed too heavily. "I don't know who he is. I just saw him. And I can't stop thinking about him." Clarissa laughed. "Well, darling, that's either love or trouble. Knowing you, it's probably both." Before Isabella could reply, a man walked by their table. Expensive suit. Immaculate haircut. Sharp jawline. He stopped, turned his head, and for the briefest second, smiled at Isabella like he knew a secret. Her stomach dropped. It was him. The stranger. "Wait, do you know him?" Clarissa asked, wide-eyed. But Isabella couldn't answer. She was already on her feet, following. The man didn't run. He didn't hide. He walked calmly down the street, as if leading her somewhere. Isabella trailed him through the crowd, her pulse hammering in her ears, until finally he turned into a quiet alley. She hesitated at the entrance. The city noise faded, replaced by the echo of dripping water and her own ragged breaths. Slowly, she stepped inside. There he was, leaning casually against the brick wall, hands in his pockets, as if he'd been waiting all along. "Finally," he said, voice smooth but laced with something dark. "I was wondering when you'd follow." Isabella's throat went dry. "Who are you?" The man's eyes locked onto hers, burning. "Someone who knows your father's secret." Her stomach twisted. "My father?" He nodded. "The great Alexander Devereux. Billionaire. Philanthropist. Idolized by the world. But not everything is as perfect as it seems, is it?" Isabella's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" The man leaned closer, his presence overwhelming. "Let's just say, the empire you live in wasn't built on the stories you've been told. And soon, very soon, the truth will come crashing down." She stumbled back. "You're lying." He smirked. "Am I? Or are you just afraid to believe me?" Before she could demand more, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the alley's mouth. Men in suits poured out, faces grim. The stranger's smirk vanished. "Too late," he muttered. "What? Who are they?" Isabella whispered, panicked. The stranger grabbed her wrist, his grip strong but not cruel. "If you want to survive, you'll come with me. Now." The city blurred around them as he pulled her through hidden paths, dodging the men who chased relentlessly. Isabella's heels snapped against the pavement, her robe clinging to her, her lungs burning. Finally, they ducked into an abandoned warehouse. Isabella collapsed against a pillar, gasping for breath. "What is happening?" she cried. "Why are they chasing us?" The man's jaw tightened. "Because of you. Because of who you are." Her heart pounded. "What does that mean?" He stepped closer, his voice low, urgent. It means your life has never been what you thought it was. And unless you trust me, you'll never know the truth. If you want to know who this mysterious man really is, and what shocking secret he knows about Isabella's family, don't miss next. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, so you don't miss what happens next. The warehouse was silent except for Isabella's ragged breathing. Dust floated in the beams of broken skylights, swirling like ghosts of the past. The stranger hadn't moved since he pulled her inside. He stood at the edge of the light, half shadow, half man, watching her. Calm. Patient. Almost too calm. Start talking, Isabella demanded, though her voice trembled. The man's lips curved slightly. Fiery. I like that. Don't play with me, she snapped, though her knees shook. You said you know something about my father. Who are you? What do you want from me? He stepped forward, slow, deliberate, until he was close enough that she could see the faint scar cutting through his eyebrow. His eyes burned with secrets, the kind that weighed heavy on the soul. My name, he said at last, is Adrian. And what I want is to keep you alive. Isabella laughed bitterly. You dragged me into an alley. You made me run for my life. Now you're hiding me in a warehouse. Forgive me if I don't exactly feel safe. Adrian tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle. You should be dead already. Those men out there, they weren't after me. They were after you. Her heart stopped. Me? Why? Adrian's jaw tightened. Because you're Alexander Devereux's daughter. And because your father isn't who you think he is. Isabella staggered back, her pulse hammering in her ears. Her father? The man who raised her with gentle smiles, who taught her to ride horses, who donated billions to charity. What are you talking about? She whispered. Adrian's eyes flicked to the door, as if expecting an ambush. Then he leaned closer, his voice low, dangerous. Your father built his empire with blood money. Not just ruthless business deals, darker things. Smuggling. Trafficking. Deals with people who shouldn't exist in daylight. And now, Adrian's gaze locked onto hers, they think you know his secrets. Isabella shook her head furiously. No, that's not possible. My father, he's a good man. Everyone knows that. You're lying. Adrian's lips curved into something between pity and frustration. Believe what you want. But the people chasing us? They believe you're the weak link. They think you have the key to exposing him. And they'll tear this city apart to get to you. Tears pricked Isabella's eyes. Why are you telling me this? What do you get out of it? Adrian looked away, the shadow of something heavy crossing his face. Because I owe someone. Someone who believed in me when no one else did. She died because of your father's empire. I swore I'd never let his sins touch another innocent. Isabella blinked, stunned. You're protecting me? Adrian's eyes flicked back to hers, fierce and unyielding. Whether you like it or not. The warehouse door creaked. Both of them froze. Adrian's hand flew to the gun at his hip. But before he could draw, the door burst open. Shadows stormed inside. Men in black suits, their movements sharp, precise. Adrian cursed under his breath. Run. But Isabella didn't move fast enough. One of the men lunged, grabbing her arm. She screamed. Adrian fired, the gunshot echoing like thunder. The man dropped. Chaos erupted. Shouts. Gunfire. Isabella ducked, her heart exploding with terror. Adrian moved like a predator, every motion lethal. But there were too many. A hand yanked Isabella back, dragging her toward the exit. She thrashed, biting, kicking. Suddenly, Adrian was there, his arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her free. He shoved her behind a crate. Stay down. She crouched low, trembling, watching in horror as Adrian fought like a man possessed. Every punch, every shot, every dodge, it was survival carved into muscle. Finally, silence fell. Bodies littered the warehouse floor. Smoke curled from Adrian's gun. He turned, chest heaving, eyes wild, and looked straight at her. You see now, he rasped. This isn't a game. This isn't a fairy tale. They will kill you. Unless you listen to me. For the first time, Isabella felt it, bone-deep fear. Not of Adrian, but of the truth clawing its way into her perfect life. Her father. Her family. Everything she thought she knew. Her voice broke. What do I do? Adrian knelt before her, his hand hovering inches from hers, not touching, but grounding. You trust me. You come with me. And together, we find out just how deep this goes. The next 24 hours blurred. Adrian moved her through safe houses, hidden tunnels, shadowed streets. Isabella's world shrank to whispered instructions, pounding footsteps, and the constant thrum of adrenaline. But through the fear, something unexpected grew. Every time Adrian shielded her. Every time his hand steadied her trembling fingers. Every time his eyes softened, just for a heartbeat. She hated herself for feeling it. But she couldn't deny it. She was drawn to him. That night, in a crumbling hideout above the city, Isabella found herself watching Adrian as he cleaned his gun. The flicker of the candlelight caught the sharp lines of his face, the scar across his brow, the shadows under his eyes. He looked dangerous, untouchable. And yet, she wanted to touch him. "Adrian," she whispered. He looked up, startled. "Why me?" she asked softly. "You could have left me in that alley. Why risk everything for me?" For once, Adrian didn't answer right away. His jaw flexed. His eyes searched hers, raw, vulnerable. "Finally," he said, "because when I saw you, I saw her." "Her?" Isabella's voice barely carried. Adrian nodded. "The woman I lost. The woman your father destroyed. You have her eyes. Her fire. And maybe, saving you is the only way I'll ever make peace with losing her." Silence stretched between them, thick with pain and longing. And in that silence, Isabella realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about her father's secret anymore. It was about them. What will Isabella uncover about her father's empire? And what will happen as her bond with Adrian deepens in the middle of this dangerous web? Don't miss next. Subscribe now so you don't miss the shocking next twist. The night pressed heavy against the broken windows of the safe house. Isabella couldn't sleep. Every sound of the city, sirens, shouts, the distant hum of engines, made her heart lurch. Across the room, Adrian sat like a statue, back against the wall, gun across his lap. His eyes never closed. "You don't sleep," Isabella whispered into the dark. Adrian's gaze flicked to her. "Sleep is a luxury I can't afford." Her chest tightened. He was carved out of stone, but she could see the cracks, the exhaustion, the scars, the grief that haunted him. "You said my father destroyed the woman you loved," Isabella whispered, afraid of her own words. "How?" Adrian's jaw clenched. He looked away, staring into the shadows. "She trusted the wrong man," he said finally, his voice like gravel. "Your father's right hand. She uncovered something she shouldn't have. They made her disappear. And I was too late." His eyes met hers, sharp, burning. "I swore I'd never be too late again." Isabella's breath caught. Something inside her, fear, pity, something more dangerous, pulled her toward him. "Adrian," she murmured. Before she could say more, the silence shattered. A sharp knock rattled the safe-house door. Adrian's gun was up instantly. He motioned for her to stay down, then moved like a shadow. The knock came again, 3 quick raps, followed by 2 slower. A code. Adrian stiffened. Slowly, he opened the door a crack. A woman slipped inside. She was tall, striking, with hair like a raven's wing and eyes that glittered with secrets. She carried herself with confidence, but her gaze softened when it landed on Adrian. "Still alive," she said. "I'm almost impressed." Adrian's lip twitched. "Nice to see you too, Celine." Isabella's pulse quickened. Who was this woman? Celine's gaze swept the room, and landed on her. "So this is her." Isabella bristled. "And who are you?" Celine smirked. "The one risking my neck to save yours. You should be grateful." Adrian cut in before Isabella could retort. "Did you get it?" Celine reached into her coat and pulled out a flash drive. She held it up like a jewel. "The file you wanted. Straight from your father's vault." Isabella's blood froze. Her father's vault. Adrian snatched the drive, his expression unreadable. He plugged it into a battered laptop, the screen glowing faintly in the dark. Lines of documents filled the screen. Contracts, wire transfers, photos. And then Isabella saw it. Her father. Shaking hands with men she recognized from news reports. Men linked to crime syndicates. Men who had ordered killings. Her throat went dry. This isn't real," she whispered, backing away. "It can't be." But Adrian's eyes told her otherwise. "It's real," he said quietly. "Every deal. Every shipment. Every life destroyed. Your father's hands are on all of it." Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to scream, to deny it, to run. But the evidence glared back at her, undeniable. And then, among the files, one image froze her blood. It was her. A photo, taken from afar. She was walking out of a cafe, laughing, oblivious. Adrian leaned closer. "They've been watching you. Tracking you. For months." Isabella's knees buckled. Adrian caught her before she fell, his arms steady, grounding. Her tears soaked into his shirt. "Why me? Why would my father? Why would he let this happen?" Adrian's hand hovered against her back, torn between restraint and comfort. "Because power makes men ruthless. And you, Isabella, you're the one thing he can't control." The room grew thick with silence. Celine shifted, her eyes narrowing at the sight of Isabella in Adrian's arms. "You're getting too close," Celine said coldly. Adrian's eyes flicked to her. "Stay out of it." Celine's lips curved. "You think you can protect her forever? She's a liability, Adrian. And you know what liabilities cost." Isabella pulled back, shaking. "What does she mean?" Adrian didn't answer. His jaw was iron. His eyes stormed. Celine smirked. "Oh, she doesn't know. Interesting." Adrian's voice cut like a blade. Not another word. The tension was suffocating. Finally, Celine stepped back. "Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you." She turned to Isabella, her smile sharp. "If you want to live, sweetheart, don't trust anyone. Not even him." With that, she slipped out into the night, leaving behind a silence that felt like a noose. Isabella turned to Adrian, her voice trembling. "What did she mean? What aren't you telling me?" Adrian's fists clenched. His eyes burned with a war she couldn't see. "I've told you what matters," he said at last, his voice low. "Your father isn't who you think. They want you dead. And his voice cracked just barely. I won't let that happen." Isabella stared at him, her heart racing. She wanted to believe him. Needed to. But Celine's words echoed in her mind. Don't trust anyone. That night, as Adrian kept watch and Isabella lay awake, staring at the ceiling, one thought consumed her. The truth had shattered her world. But the most dangerous secret of all might be the one Adrian was hiding. The web is tightening. Isabella has seen proof of her father's crimes, but Adrian's own secrets threaten to tear them apart. In Next, betrayal comes from where she least expects, and the story explodes into a deadly confrontation you won't forget. Subscribe so you don't miss it. The safe house was no longer safe. Isabella felt it in her bones. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of shadow outside the window pressed on her like a warning. Adrian stood near the door, gun in hand, eyes sharp. He hadn't said much since Celine left, but his silence was louder than any words. "Adrian," Isabella whispered, breaking the tension. "What aren't you telling me? I need the truth. All of it." His jaw tightened. He didn't look at her. Before he could answer, the door burst inward. A flash. A roar. The world shattered into chaos. Masked men flooded the room, guns raised. Adrian reacted instantly, shoving Isabella behind him. Bullets tore through the walls, glass exploding in shards. He fired back with brutal precision, dropping 2 men in seconds. "Run," he shouted. But Isabella couldn't move. She was frozen, watching the man who had saved her life again and again fight like a cornered wolf. Then, another figure stepped through the smoke. Her blood ran cold. "Father." Mr. Devereux stood in the doorway, calm amidst the storm. Impeccably dressed, eyes like ice. His presence was more terrifying than the gunfire around them. "Isabella," he said, voice dripping with false warmth. "What a mess you've made." Adrian snarled, gun trained on him. "Stay back." Devereux's gaze flicked to Adrian. "Ah, my stray dog. Still loyal, but not to me." He smiled coldly. "Tell her, Adrian. Tell her the truth." Isabella's heart hammered. "What truth?" Adrian's face twisted with conflict. His hand shook, just barely. "I used to work for him," he said finally, voice breaking. "I was his enforcer, his weapon, until I saw what he really was. Until I lost everything." Her father's smile widened. "And now you've poisoned my daughter with your lies." Isabella staggered back. Adrian, working for her father? Her mind reeled. But there was no time to process. Devereux lifted his hand. His men closed in. "Kill him," he ordered. "Bring my daughter home." Adrian fired first. Chaos erupted. Bullets, shouts, bodies falling. Isabella ducked, crawling across shattered glass, her hands shaking. Then, her father's hand clamped around her wrist. "You're coming with me," he hissed. "No," she screamed, struggling. And then Adrian was there. Bleeding, battered, but unrelenting. He slammed into Devereux, ripping Isabella free. The 2 men collided in a brutal fight. Fists, blood, rage years in the making. "You took everything from me," Adrian roared, driving Devereux into the wall. "And I'll take her too," Devereux spat, reaching for his gun. Bang! The shot echoed like thunder. Devereux froze, eyes wide. Blood blossomed across his chest. He looked down, then at Isabella. Shock, betrayal, fury all flickered in his gaze. And then he fell. The room went silent. Isabella stood trembling, the gun still smoking in her hands. She had pulled the trigger. Her father lay at her feet, lifeless. Adrian stared at her, chest heaving, blood running down his temple. Slowly, he lowered his own weapon. "You saved me," he said hoarsely. Isabella's vision blurred with tears. No, we saved each other. He took a step closer. She didn't pull away. For the first time, his walls cracked. His hand reached for hers, warm despite the blood. Their eyes met, two broken souls, bound by the fire they'd survived. Adrian, she whispered. What now? He looked at her, a shadow of a smile tugging at his lips. Now, he said, voice low but certain. We build something better. Together. Isabella leaned into him, her head against his chest, hearing the steady drum of his heart. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. Outside, sirens wailed. The night was far from over. But inside, amidst the wreckage, they had found something no power, no corruption, no blood could destroy. They had found each other. And that, my friends, is the end of Isabella and Adrian's story. The daughter who uncovered the truth, and the bodyguard who risked everything to save her. If this story hooked you, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss the next powerful story we share. Trust me, the next one will leave you speechless. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive Adrian if you were Isabella? I'll be reading and replying to your thoughts.